Hello, I'm Old Fart, and my guilty pleasure is I like knives. You're looking at one of a series of videos where I'm sharing a view into my collection of small folding pocket knives. I'm not an expert or an official representative of anything or anyone in any way. I just like knives. So today, the third knife we're looking at in my collection is this, a zero tolerance 0450 Sinkevitch design. Why this one now? Well, this was my first zero tolerance knife, my first Framelock knife, and my first flipper knife. As I began to learn about the styles and vocabulary of folding knives, I knew I wanted to experience a Framelock and a flipper, and I saw an ad for this knife. I liked the style and the other specs. And at that point, titanium was still fairly new to me. I didn't realize yet how common it is in knife construction. So I went, ooh, titanium, like the space shuttle. I gotta have that. So the formal name of this knife is the Zero Tolerance 0450 Sinkevitch Titanium Small. And the designer is Dmitry Sinkevitch. I don't know any of his other work, but I like this. When it arrived, I was slightly surprised at the size. It's small, I guess, but it's not tiny. For quite a while, it was one of the larger knives in my collection, certainly on the large end of the gentleman's knife scale. However, I loved the titanium frame, and the first time I flipped it open, I loved the action. I almost immediately cut myself on it by misjudging how sharp it was and poking right through a package and into my finger. So, the opening mechanism is a traditional flipper. Flip. There is no way to open it except via the flipper. You really can't grab the blade and open it two-handed. And it's a frame lock, which means that this piece of the frame bends in under spring pressure and engages with the back of the blade to lock it in position. As you've seen, opening is easy. It's got a fairly firm detent, so it doesn't open by accident. It takes quite a bit of finger muscle to get it started, and then it flips open very quickly with a quiet click. There's jimping on the back of the flipper tab, so it's easy to get a good grip with the tip of the index finger for flipping. The flipper tab itself is not too aggressive. I haven't noticed it digging into my leg or my pants when it's in my pocket, so it's not what Nick Shabazz calls a pocket pecker. I have noticed one issue, though. That is, if I am too gentle with the opening pressure, I get a misfire. Oh, there wasn't a misfire. There we are. I don't know if that's the accepted term, but it seems appropriate. It didn't open all the way, not far enough to engage the lock. Now, it's easy to pull it open the rest of the way with the blade, or by pressing on the flipper tab with my thumb, but it's better not to be gentle. Give it a good muscular flip so that it snaps open firmly and securely. Closing it is also not simple. There's no relief cut in the presentation side here that allows you to push your thumb sideways to disengage, so you can't really unlock it by pushing this way. You pretty much have to use the wedge the tip of your thumb vertically into the space technique to unlock the closing mechanism. It's not difficult to do. Now, with other knives, I've often made a comment about the fact that I don't really like my thumb being in harm's way when I begin closing the blade. This knife feels a little less scary because the flipper tab engages with the thumb and stops the motion of the blade before it can come over too far. So there's much less chance of accidentally closing the blade on your thumb, and there is time to get out of the way and then close it securely. So this knife feels safer than some of the liner lock or frame lock knives that I have, where I'm moving the blade unobstructed towards my thumb. For the other specifications, as usual, I'm not going to list them all. There are a lot of your viewers out there to do that, and the information is easy to find on the internet and manufacturers' websites. I will mention that the blade length is 83 millimeters. Blade length is 83 millimeters. Or about 3 1/4 inches if you live in Liberia or Myanmar or the United States. I mention that because 3 inches is a legal threshold in some places, so if you live in an under 3-inch jurisdiction, this knife might be illegal for you to carry. For size, I'll just do a couple of comparisons to familiar everyday objects. First, closed. It's almost exactly the same length as this thing, which I'm getting a big kick out of using as a reference because you have no idea what this thing is or how big it is. And open, it's just a little larger than a scientific pocket calculator. And again, I'm getting a big kick out of using that as a size reference because I think fewer and fewer people have any idea what a scientific pocket calculator is or how big it is. Ha! The joy of being an old fart. The weight is 82 grams, just under 3 ounces, and what that means is that you notice the weight. It's fairly substantial. Not heavy, but not a featherweight like some of the gentleman's knives that I have. It's almost center balanced, just slightly handle heavy. The balance is really good for working with the knife. The blade is a drop point, and I'd say that there's very little drop. It's almost a straight back. It's certainly not dainty like some gentleman's knives. It looks sturdy and built for working. The back of the blade is 3 millimeters, hefty, and overall the feeling I get is more robust than dainty. The blade is satin finished. There's a moderate-sized sharpening choil in the shoulder. And of course no thumb stud since it's a flipper, so there's access to the full length of the blade for sharpening. The handle scales are bead blasted titanium, and there are little red standoffs in there to give it a bit of visual pop of color. I like the looks of it. It's gently curved on both sides, and there is quite deep contouring for the index finger and for the other 3 fingers, so you get a sturdy grip. It looks purposeful and it feels good. The original clip is also satin finished. I think it's steel. I might be wrong. It might be titanium. And it's shallow carry as it comes with the knife. Now, I prefer deep carry clips, so I've added this aftermarket deep carry clip, something I ordered on eBay, which fits the look nicely and keeps the knife lower in the pocket. The clip is two-sided, which is to say it can be removed and mounted on the other side. You can see the mounting holes are here. However, being a frame lock, the knife is very much not ambidextrous. You can move the clip to the other side, but you can't move the locking mechanism to the other side, so left-handers will find that they're pulling the locking mechanism towards their hand to get the unlock started, and I imagine that's a little awkward. Maybe they make a left-handed version of this knife, I don't know, but I would guess not. It's a high-volume manufacturing situation, and that would require a change of machine setup, which eats into profits. And I've never seen a left-handed version of the 0450, or in fact, for that matter, any zero tolerance listed. There's a lanyard hole in the body, and I've added this fob. It's mainly decorative, but it also lends just a little bit of extra sensory feedback since my pinky tends to wrap off the end of the knife, and this gives it something to hold and adds a little bit of feeling of security. On overall quality, the action is impressively smooth, but I wish that misfire, there's one there, wasn't so easy to achieve. I really do need to make a point of flipping it aggressively, there we are, to get a good secure lock. It's a good fidgeting knife. It's not too loud when it's opening, and so it's not obnoxious in the office. Just a satisfying click. Closing it is safe and easy, so it's nice for fidgeting with in the hand. While it's very comfortable to hold, the jimping on the back of the blade is a little bit too far up. I have to reach up with my thumb, so I generally don't use it. On the other hand, you can choke up on the blade. The choil is big enough to allow you to get your finger in there, and then the jimping is useful. You have a very carefully controlled grip on the blade. I have fairly long fingers, and I get 3 fingers comfortably on board. My pinky tends to wrap around the end. If you had thick, meaty fingers, you might find it cramped. The clip is nicely placed and shaped, so I don't get any hot spots when I'm holding it. It's just very comfortable for long holding. The blade steel is S35VN, which is a great steel. It's not too difficult to sharpen. Not trivially easy, but it sharpens well and it takes a beautiful polish and has shown to have very good edge retention. It's rated as excellent corrosion resistance, and I've seen no sign of any forms of corrosion or discoloration. I think it's going to be a great working steel. From the factory, it came as paper cutting sharp, which I verified by cutting myself soon after opening it. I've sharpened it since to a mirror edge, which I just really enjoy admiring. Now, mirror edging a knife is strictly a vanity thing. There is no reason a knife needs to be that sharp. In fact, there's lots of evidence that it shouldn't be that sharp. Something around 600 grit is probably an ideal working edge for actually cutting things. This edge at hundreds of thousands grit is strictly a toy. Now let's discuss my two fictional ratings. The first is the NTGK rating. How does this knife score as a non-threatening gentleman's knife? I will rate that in two parts, the gentleman's part and the non-threatening part. For the gentleman's part, I'll give this knife a B, and here's why. It's functionally shaped, not elegantly shaped. It doesn't have a decorative scale material. It looks like a knife. This is function over form. It's a bit on the large size. You have definitely taken a knife out of your pocket, not a pen knife or an office tool. On the other hand, it is mechanically beautiful. The titanium body and the nice action do get admiring comments from some office mates. For the non-threatening part, I'm also going to give it a B. Here's why. I like to evaluate non-threateningness with two questions. Is the opening mechanism scary? And is the general shape and appearance scary? So, is the opening mechanism scary? Well, yes. Flippers are scary for non-knife people. It flips open from closed to open suddenly and almost invisibly. Non-knife people think, that's a switchblade, that's a weapon. It's not as bad as some because the sound is quiet and refined. Just by comparison, here is a Monterey Bay XLC, and it opens with a loud smack that definitely causes people to look up and go, oh my God, what is that? So this is less scary than that. Next, is the shape scary? I'd say a little. The contoured frame and finger openings and the drop point blade and the very pointy tip are slightly aggressive. It doesn't look like it's trying to be a weapon, and the fob helps to de-scary it a little bit. But it's not designed for gentlemanly appearance. It's designed for function. So overall, I'll give it a B as an NTGK. My next rating will be my KN rating, my rating for my friends who are knife nerds. I'm going to give it a KN score of A. It has great steel, an all-titanium frame that is nicely machined with pleasant chamfers all around, very smooth action, and pretty good lockup. I was tempted to go with a B+ and didn't consider an A+ because of those occasional misfires. Now that I'm trying to make it misfire, of course, it's opening reliably. I carry this knife quite often, especially on days that I think I'm more likely to really need a knife, days that I know I'm handling packages or opening boxes, things like that. With the addition of the aftermarket deep carry pocket clip, it really is everything I could ask for. It's sturdy, it's sharp as hell, it holds its edge well, it's very reliable, and it's comfortable to work with. I like it a lot, and I think you would too. That ends my tour of this knife. My first titanium frame lock, my first flipper, the Zero Tolerance 0450 Sinkevitch Titanium. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again.